Hi class, we're looking at week 14 and we're back for our last unit in Excel, and we're doing this kind of after we've done some access because it seemed to make sense to wait to look at some of the Excel functions that had to do with creating forms and controls till after we looked at those things in access, because access is kind of built for them. Now I've got, of course, my SAM information up. Let me go back to SAM, and I'm going to go to the textbook. So I'm going to bring up the Excel textbook. And I'm just going to uncheck stuff till I see the book and go into the textbook. I know it's a little bit different than your process. And we're looking at section 11, the very last section. And in this unit, we're going to look at many different things with Excel, but we're going to end up creating a spreadsheet that looks somewhat similar to this one here. And because I looked at the presentation, I was normally going through the presentation with you, but looking at that, it doesn't really make as much sense as looking at the textbook, because the textbook gives us the steps that we need to take to accomplish this. So I'm going to put it over here and keep the textbook available for us. Now the files are going to be the Chapter 11 files, and I'll attach these in Canvas, but I'm going to have an events spreadsheet. And looking at our instructions here, this event expenses worksheet contains estimated costs for 3 sales events, and we also have some spreadsheets that go along with this one that will be merging into it, and we'll be adding a watermark to this one. First thing I'm going to do is save as, and save this as a macro enabled workbook. And I had already done that, so I'm going to replace that version I had. Now that one's ready. We will minimize that, and I'm also going to open the sales data analysis worksheet. So it's just called sales. Now this spreadsheet, we're going to be modifying some of this prospect information. I'm going to also save this as a macro enabled. Now, our sales data analysis spreadsheet is here that shows the different kinds of products that we're selling or producing, with some information there about that. And then the prospect is going to give us some information about somebody who's interested in buying our products. And in our events spreadsheet, we have our prior year's spreadsheet telling us what has happened in the past, and then our event expenses overview information. So we're going to be adding some information. To all of these different spreadsheets. So just taking a look there. Now, here's our needs requirement, and we develop and market 4 types of generic drugs to hospitals and health clinics throughout the world, and we want to record information about these pharmacies that we could be selling to. We have a spreadsheet that's going to keep track of our scheduled production, a second workbook needed to maintain current data, and they say that several copies of each workbook exist. The information required of the prospects has been structured in a hidden prospect list worksheet, but the sales manager wants a form created to make data entry easier. So we're going to be making those changes to create the form. All right, we have a roadmap here. We're first of all going to design the user interface, which it involves deciding what things are going to look like to our user as they're presented this information. Then we're going to see how to record user input to another location using the interface that we create for our users. We're going to write some Visual Basic for Applications code, test our interface, and then we'll talk a little bit about sharing and collaborating with our workbooks, using comments and tracking changes, and finalizing our workbook. So lots of things in the meantime for what we're going to do. So I have already opened up Excel, started our files, and they want me to maximize. So I'm going to maximize this sales form, or our prospect form. And I've already saved it as a .xlsm file, macro enabled. Now we're going to make some changes to this, and in your textbook, online ebook, there are several videos about how to use all of these different controls that we're going to use to create this user interface. So feel free to watch all of these different videos. They're all short ones, and as you can see, they're working on a different type of product than what we're going to be working on, but the same kind of controls. So you can see all of those videos. I'm going to scroll on past them and start with ours. So in ours, we're going to actually add some items to our workbook, some Visual Basic for Application controls and some developer controls. Then, as we mentioned earlier, we're going to add some code, Visual Basic for Applications code associated with our buttons. And then when we click on our buttons, we should have some actions occur to allow users to enter data into our form. So the first thing we want to do is add some controls to our spreadsheet. And we need to enable the developer tools. Mine are enabled already. You can see the ribbon is showing up. So yours might already be enabled from previous activities that you've done. But if it's not, use your File menu to see the, what do they call it, the Show Behind screen. And then on this File menu, we're going to look at our options. And in our options, we want to click on Customize Ribbon. Well, that's not it. How about Quick Access Toolbar? No. Oh, it is Customize Ribbon. I was doubting myself. Now on Customize Ribbon, over here on this side, you should see this developer option. We want to place a check in that box to turn on the developer toolbar and click OK. And then you should see the developer ribbon available on your toolbar. Now on our developer ribbon, we can use this insert item to add new things, new items to our spreadsheet, which is going to become a form. That's why these are called form controls. Now, we're going to be using several of these different controls. This is the controls gallery as we update to create our user interface. If you look at some of these different controls, you'll see many, many different options. We can add an image, checkboxes, many, many different things. Now, as we work with this, we're going to be creating these items on our spreadsheet and we're going to look at the textbook for information on what we need. Whoa, this picture is really something, isn't it? But it's okay. It's pointing out to you all of these different controls that we have on this gallery from our insert drop-down ribbon. So we have form controls. We can use group box, checkbox, option button. Most of these controls are things that you have seen on Windows Forms often as you've worked with forms. So they should be familiar to you. We have buttons to make things happen, labels just to identify things. So we can use all of these different controls. Now in our textbook, they have a little bit of a view of what we want. So right here where we have contact by, we would like 3 option buttons going across. So I'm going to use insert and I'm going to find an option button. Now we have 2 types. Let's see what we want. We actually want these form controls, option buttons. So we'll look a little bit at the difference, but we just want a forms control. And we want this one to start, kind of over here beside order by. And it'll take up a couple of cells there. And then we want another one. Right beside it, and another one. Now we can change the text and things that are inside these buttons, and we'll be doing that as we go through. Now we want some more option buttons down here under how did you hear about our product. So I'll grab one, and we want these ones. These are just really going to take up a cell. Another one. Now, of course, we could copy and paste these also, or we can just insert them and then we'll look at how we can line them up nicely later. I'm just going to create some nice option buttons here. Happy option buttons, right? Okay, so here we go. My option buttons are getting a little bit bigger than our cell. One more. All right, so that might be too many, but it should be plenty, huh? We'll see. Now we're going to update our form a little bit to label these properly. Oh, and I see there it says we needed 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. Perfect. So we're ready to keep moving in our textbook. Now, after we've got those option buttons, we'd like some check boxes down at the bottom. And we're going to use check boxes from our forms control area also of our insert tool. So there's a checkbox there. Now with our checkboxes, they're going to be under this bottom question. There's 1, 2, 3, and one more. And we can move those around, of course, however we want to. And of course, they tell us a little bit about copying and pasting them. Now, I'd like to group these option buttons into a group box so that the system knows that they're related. These are different options. You can only choose one. Whenever it's a radio button, we kind of imply that you can only choose one. So let's add a group box, and we want this to be under insert, and in our forms control area, here's our group box control, and I want to kind of draw it around those option buttons. There we go. Now, after we get our group box on there, let's see what we've got to do next. Now, once we've got our group box, let's add a label, and we're going to add a label from the ActiveX controls. And we want this label to be kind of over in this area over here. So let's find our label in the ActiveX controls. So the label should be something that has some text. There we go. And we want this label to be kind of right over in here. And it's, I think, taking up about 4 cells. So just about like that. So now we've added some radio buttons and some check boxes and a group box. Now with our group box, you're going to back up and double check something. Group option buttons. Do we need to group these contact by option buttons? They didn't mention it. Okay, so we're going to leave those separate and not put them in a group box right yet. We'll see how that works out. And we've got our label. Now we're going to add some buttons, and buttons usually cause some sort of action. Whenever we click a button, we're used to something happening. So I'm going to use our insert drop down and find the ActiveX control that is the button. And I want to put this button kind of over here. They put it over this third option button. So we'll see how we're going to work with that. There's a command button. Now we need another button. This one is going to go down over in this area. Now we've got our 2 command buttons. Let's go ahead and do a save. And we could add different properties. Remember, a property is a characteristic of something, like the color of your hair is a property of you. And we're going to change some of the properties or characteristics about these buttons and different things here on our form as we're developing it. One thing that we can do right away is add some alternative text. We could do that. So we could right-click the control, like say this button, and I'm going to have to select it first and then right-click. And then I could choose Format Control. And on my Alt Text tab, I could set some alternative text. Click the button, and that's all I'm going to say. I'm not being a smart aleck, but we're going to see what it's going to do here in a minute. I'm not sure if this is the one that's going to display our form or if it's something else. So we see right away that we can change the characteristics of our button by doing that right click and Format Control. Now we can do a lot of other things to format our buttons. First of all, for our buttons, we want to make sure that our captions, what they say here in their text, matches what the buttons are going to do, what kind of action they're going to take. We're also going to hide this border of this group box. We'll know they're grouped. And then for our checkboxes, again, we're going to set their captions to match so that they are meaningful. So let's see if we can do all this. Here we go. So first of all, we're going to get our first option button, and we're going to tell it to do some sort of email. So let's click on this option button. Now I've got to get to it here. There's my option button. I finally had it selected. I clicked off someplace else. I'm going to press my down arrow to get to it. Now my option button here, I want to right click on it. And then press escape. Come on, you silly thing. There it is. I just caught it. So I moused right over it and right clicked without selecting it. And I got the control menu, the right click drop down menu. And I want to choose edit text. So I'm going to change this one on the text to say email. So I'm going to select all the text, change it, delete any extra to make it say email. And then we should see that option button saying that correct caption now. Now I want to resize this thing so that it's not bigger than what it needs to be. Come on, let me select it. So I'm going to press my down arrow again and try to get my text box. It looks like I'm just about perfect there. Now for my second option button, we want to right click on it, and for this one, when we right click, try it again. You're going to figure this out and laugh at me. That's okay. It's late. It's not listening to me. Well, let's see. Can I just look at the properties for that option button? There it is. So I clicked on properties, and I do have this option button selected. And I'm going to see what I want to make this one say. It's going to say U.S. mail. Of course, it won't let me change that. There we go. I can just click in it like I go into rename mode. And I'll type U.S. mail. Now I want to resize that thing, if possible. There we go. And our third one then is going to say something different. Telephone. So again, I've clicked in there to change my text. I'm going to make it say telephone and resize my control a little bit so it's not quite so big. And then I think I should be able to move this one a little bit, and I'll move this one a little bit. Okay, that's it. Now I finally got a hold of it. I'm going to resize it and move it. And I did do something to my underline, so I'm going to click on that to put it back. And on this one, I'm going to click on it to turn it off. Nope. Now, does that look right? Phew, lots of clicking around for me. So I have our radio buttons here, contact by email, US mail, or telephone. They look pretty good. And they would like telephone lined up with column H. So that's way far away from where I have it. So I'm going to move this button. And move this telephone. Column H. And then we want US mail to be right under email over here. And then we want this email radio button to be where? Right over here. Okay, so that's how they want it. Now, if necessary, you can hold the Alt key. And let's see why. In our book it says the answer is here. It makes it align control to the grid. So very nice. You can also hold the control key and click the other two controls to select all three. So let's try that. I'm going to select our email control. Then I'm going to hold my control key and select our US mail and our telephone, all while holding the control key. Now I can let go of the control key, and I'm going to find my drawing tools. And in my drawing tools, I want to click the Format tab. We're on the Format tab. And then in the Size group, right over here, we want to click the Shape Height box arrow and set the shape height to 0.02. Alright, now let's find our Align Objects button, Drawing Tools, Format tab, Arrange group. Here it is, and we want to align our objects. So I've got my Align menu. Notice we could align the bottoms, the tops, however we want. For ours, let's see what they want us to do. They want us to align the bottoms and distribute horizontally. Look at how it lined up our US mail. Now we want to make C8 the active cell to deselect the option buttons and then click to select the email option button. So they say to C8, it doesn't really matter, we're just clicking somewhere, and then click on email to make it our selected option. So that's how we want it to look, is with our email option selected. Now let's do each of our option buttons in this group. So for our first option button, let's send that group box to back here. I'm going to right click. Maybe. There it is. Now for our first option button, and I know I'm doing this kind of awkwardly, we want to have it say, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, or try